Thanks for the support, Chetanji. And a very, very good morning and welcome to all the participants, esteemed panelists, and the viewers across the world in this direct talk number 5. And today's talk is around the global perspective of the industry. And we are so fortunate to have the best of the best from across the globe who represent the industry worldwide and in all the corners of the world, right? And let me have the privilege to introduce them to you. So we start with Mr. Ali Shabdar, and Ali is the General Secretary of DSA UAE. And prior to joining the association in 2015, he built a successful career as a business leader and advisor, having gained extensive experience and expertise in business process, government relations, policies, procedures, and marketing across a number of industries. So not only Ali sits on the board of directors of the WFDSA, that we World Federation of Direct Selling Association, but also he is a part of the WFDSA Association Advisory Council and the WFDSA Advocacy Committee, and helping DSA UAE grow into in the Middle East and North Africa region, we call it MENA region, and remain an active contributor to the global direct selling community. So a very, very warm welcome, Mr. Ali, and we're fortunate to have you here, right?
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
And moving on, we have Mr. Adolfo Franco, and he's from US. And when we thought about conceptualizing this entire webinar on global perspective, the biggest challenge was the time zones. So we could not match the time zones across the world, because one of us is sitting in Australia, one of us is sitting in US, one in Malaysia, one in UAE. So we were always thinking, what is the time frame? And we could not come across a time. And we did not want to change the time frame of our webinar as well. So fortunate that we have people like Adolfo and Tamuna with us supporting the direct selling industry. So it's 2 a.m. in US, and they are here to support the community. So Adolfo, no words can express, and Tamuna, of course, no words can express our gratitude towards you. So you've waken up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and you are ready to contribute to the industry. So Adolfo is a Vice President for Global Regulatory Affairs at US Direct Selling Association, which is actually the first DSA. It is commonly known as DSA only, right? And Adolfo is responsible for managing and directing the government relations efforts with association in Washington, DC, and throughout the United States. So in this capacity, he represents the association and the member companies. So he works to promote the direct selling industry's interests with members of Congress, state legislatures, as well as both federal and state regulatory authorities. So he has deep penetration into the government system, wherein he likes to promote the cause of the industry. So he also provides advice and counsel to the member companies engaged in international activities because of his immense international exposure to the industry. And prior to joining DSA in April 2007, Adolfo was Assistant Administrator for Latin America and Caribbean for the US Agency for International Development, USAID, which is called. He also served as a counsel to the chairman of House International Relation Committees and advised committee members on the development matters. He has graduated from University of Northern Iowa in Masters of Arts in History. And after that, he attended the Creighton University School of Law, from where he received his Juris Doctorate degree cum laude in 1983. So, Adolfo, very warm welcome.
Thank you so much.
And so if I'm not wrong, the Juris Doctorate degree cum laude might translate into PhD in law, I suppose?
That's right. That was a long time ago, but yes, that's right. That's exactly what, that's what it is.
Welcome, Dr. Adolfo.
Thank you.
Welcome to the board. It's a pleasure having you here. And moving on, so we, from the extreme western part, we move on to the southern part or southeastern part, we would say. So from representing Australia, we have Gillian Stapleton, and Gillian is a Executive Director of Direct Selling Association of Australia. and she has been working on that since like 2016. She's the first female appointed to this position in the association's 51 years of history. So Gillian started her career as a teacher in UK, but then she joined a home-based direct selling business so that she can be a full-time mom to her children. And that is the case with so many women out there in like all the parts of the globe. And direct selling is such a great industry which comes to the rescue of such people who want to be a full-time parent to their children. And Gillian was one of those, and she brings in with her tremendous exposure as a direct seller as well. So rising to the top of the business and achieving every award and trip possible in that company. So Jill was offered a corporate role in Australia with the same organization. And since then, she has become like a CEO also of both the network marketing organization and plus the face of like the Direct Selling Association of Australia. So she's very passionate about empowering others, particularly women, to be the best that they can be. And she's a big believer in setting and achieving goals. She has an infectious energy and an infectious smile, as you can see. And she's a great sports person as well. She has run 11 marathons in the past 10 years. And just for fun, right? So we always say that sports people have a tremendous like future and tremendous presence in the direct selling industry. So Gillian, it's huge pleasure to have you amongst us. And your energy and smile are actually infectious, right? So we're looking
very
forward
kind.
to your contribution. Thanks for
very
being
honored.
Thank you very much.
Very honored to be here. Thank you.
Moving on, we move to Malaysia and we move to our neighbors that we say. So Mr. Lawrence Chia is amongst us, and he is the Executive Director of Direct Selling Association of Malaysia. And Malaysia looks like so Malaysia is one of the key players of direct selling in the Asia Pacific region, and he has been in the executive director of DSAM since 2008, and it's one of the oldest direct selling associations established in Asia, and which was established way back in 1978, and it currently has over 125 member companies. So Lawrence also oversees the Secretariat of ASEAN DSA's President Working Committee, which is a working group comprising of DSAs within the ASEAN region that is affiliated with WFDSA plus IDSA. And he is currently one of the 3 WFDSA's Association Advisory Council for Asia Pacific region. So Lawrence, Mr. Lawrence, a very, very warm welcome from India, right? And it's such a huge pleasure to have you amongst us. And so we look forward to your words of wisdom, your pearls of wisdom towards the direct selling community in India. And finally, we'll talk about one of the faces of the direct selling across globe. So we are not talking about someone who's associated, who is focused on just one country or one region. So yes, we have amongst us Tamuna Gabilia, and I'm not too sure whether I pronounced the surname right, but
good enough.
As an executive director and chief operating officer of WFDSA, and she's a very, very well-known face across the direct selling community all across the world. She is a very, very active participant in all that is happening across world on this in the direct selling arena. In her capacity, she leads and oversees the WFDSA initiative and focuses on advocating direct selling industry's position with external stakeholders and promoting women in economic empowerment initiatives. So just like Gillian, she is also a champion of women empowerment causes. She believes in fostering highest ethical conduct in marketplace and enhancing the local association management. She works with various governments, consumer groups, academics, and that is actually one of my passions. And I was looking forward, that's why I was looking forward to meet Tamuna, because academics, promoting direct selling to academics is one of the passions that I carry. And I've been living with that passion since last probably 10 years. And she is one of those who has actually started with this around the world, and she also serves as global spokesperson for the direct selling industry. She is a PG in International Development from School of International Service, American University. And prior to joining WFDSA, Tamuna has vast experience in various executive and diplomatic roles. She has also been like actively involved with the Organization for Women in International Trade that we generally know by the name OWIT, in various capacities like Vice President for Chapter Support, Member of Executive Board. She is a member of OWIT's Advisory Board and WFDSA's Board of Delegates. She is also the co-recipient of the Association of Women in International Trade Outstanding Section Award. So Tamuna, I cannot, no words can express the amount of gratitude that we have towards all the panelists and specifically towards you as well, to be here at these odd hours and according to your time zones. But it's such a pleasure to have all of you on the board. So welcome to you, huge welcome to you. And
thank you so much. It's such a pleasure just work with all of my colleagues around the globe. I am a lucky person, I consider myself.
Perfect. So I'll give you a brief introduction of myself as well. So I'm Kamal Kant Vasist, and I work as an associate professor and director for e-learning in one of the most beautiful universities you'll ever come across in the world. So it's situated in the foothills of Himalayas, and it's known by the name Shulini University. And Shulini is the name of the goddess on which the name of our town, which is Solan, is based. And it's a very beautiful university. People who come here, they say that it's more like a resort than a university. So probably whenever you have a chance to come to India sometime, which doesn't look a very likely in the near future, but still whenever you get a chance, so we'll invite you over to my beautiful university. And so my high point in my career is that I did my PhD in direct selling, in network marketing to be precise. And and all thanks to my management, because that was the time when direct selling was not going through very good phase, specifically in India. So I started in 2011-12, and but my management supported me, and as my PhD progressed, and so did the industry also progressed. There were direct selling guidelines which were set up, and all the government initiatives came up, and the industry has been rising steadily ever since. So I've also started a course called Network Marketing, which is a full-fledged course in university, and probably our university was the first one to launch it. I've been teaching it since last 4 years, and I took the approval from IDSA as well. I got it checked from IDSA at that point of time when I started it. And so that's a little bit about me. And finally, I would like you to introduce to someone who has started this off with his entire team, and he has been the face of direct selling in India. So let me have the privilege to introduce my co-host, Mr. Chetan Bhardwaj, to you. Chetan ji, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Kamal. And yes, I am though heading the Indian DSA, as we call it. But prior to that, or say before that, I'm a member of the direct selling fraternity. And can I tell you how excited I am to listen to all these eminent panelists who are here. You know, as Dr. Kamal rightly said, it's almost 2 a.m. in the night, like 2 in the night in USA, and still, you know, look at them, they are looking so fresh and absolutely ready to answer our queries and everything. I'd just like to quickly add to our viewers, you know, these 5 gentlemen that you are seeing, little ladies you are seeing on your screen, they are representing 5 different regions. I mean, this webinar was planned. So if you start from India and say move to the right of the globe, you have Mr. Lawrence. So you get a perspective of the ASEAN region, you know, the core Asian region that we call it. Move further right, you have Jillian. So you get the perspective of the Pacific region. Move further right, you have Mr. Adolfo from the US. And then as you come, you know, back to India, you have Mr. Ali representing the entire Middle Eastern region. And if we are leaving any country or any region, Tamuna is there to, you know, represent that or to give us a perspective of that. So without wasting any time, back to you, Dr. Kamal, you may start the proceedings.
Right, so because we have a great panel and we don't want to waste any time, so without wasting any time, so we'll move to the discussion straight away. And
just one interruption, sir. I would like to request our viewers watching us live to use #DirectTalk in all their comments, which we are receiving in real time on our Facebook. So whenever you share this webcast, whenever you're commenting, please use hashtag direct talk, DIRECTALK. Thank you so much, sir. You may continue.
Right. Thank you. Okay. So we will start the discussions right away. We don't want to waste any time, and we'll want to take as much wisdom from all of the leaders that you are as possible. So we'll start with no particular order, and we'll start. So generally we started alphabetically, but today we'll break the rule and we'll start with Tamuna, because first of all, I would like to understand, our viewers would like to understand, what is World Federation of Direct Selling Association, what is WFDSA, and what is the significance of WFDSA?
Yes. Well, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for inviting us. Doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m. We were so glad to be with you, and thank you for your kind introduction. And I'm very glad to see my colleagues from all around the world. Well, World Federation, where I work, is a global organization which was established in 1978 to represent the direct selling industry as a federation of national direct selling associations. Currently, we have 62 associations. We only have one per country. And our main goal is to do exactly what we are doing today, to work with governments, with consumer groups, with academics, with media, to promote direct selling industry and the wonderful opportunities we offer, to help and work with our direct selling associations, because we are constantly in a building mode, and every day we become stronger and better because we learn every day, and to serve as a source of information about direct selling. I want to point out that when people look at the World Federation and the industry, because our industry, is over $180 billion industry, we have a lot of independent salespeople. However, it is a very tightly knit industry where people are so close to each other, all our colleagues, that we work with each other on a daily basis.
Exactly. Thank you, Tamuna. And so you talked about the objectives of WFDSA. So let me just give you the objective of this webinar series. So when we started talking, I and Chetan and Abhishek ji, of course, so we started talking about and we started conceptualizing this webinar series. So our core objective was to provide understanding about the industry to the masses, because generally people, because as you rightly mentioned that there is it's a $200 billion industry, but there is so much of scope. Still there is so much of scope. So the core objective, and we think that because in India specifically, the industry is not where it should have been. It's like a 25-year-old industry now, and it's not where it should have been. We are just doing something around 13,000 crores, and it's not where it deserves to be. And the single reason for it is that people do not understand it for what it actually is. So our core objective of this series was to provide understanding of this industry, and rest is all everything will fall into place. That I'm 100% sure about it, right? So moving on with the discussion. So we would like to understand from the esteemed panel, and we'll start with Mr. Ali, that what is your global perspective of the industry? So what do you think, where do you think the industry is headed globally? And what are the current and future trends that you see that stand out? And of course, we would also like to understand a little bit, not much, of the impact of the current pandemic on the direct selling industry in your country, right? So we'll not talk much about the pandemic and COVID and all, because we've talked enough about it and we want to give something fresh to the viewers. So what is the current trend of the industry, global as well as in your country? So Mr. Ali, if you can throw some light on that.
Sure. I believe the industry is actually growing and in the right direction. In the recent, let's say 10 years with digitalization of a lot of industries, including ours, the channels of marketing and sales are becoming more and more digital. The companies themselves are transforming themselves digitally, and software becomes centrogram. We have more more than 50% of online purchases done via mobile devices, and companies have to cope with this. And of course, direct sellers also are adopting this. So this wave of digitalization not only is not weakening the industry, is actually strengthening the industry, make it more accessible and available for everybody to either become a consumer or become a practitioner of the industry. So the tools are available for the rest of us, the tools that were not available. So I can only see growth, but in the right direction. And just touching on the pandemic, I believe the pandemic has accelerated a lot of good efforts that the community, the companies were actually putting, and this is just getting better.
Right, Ali. So because Middle East represents a region which has just started to make a little mark. So it's like around 2% of the world turnover of the direct selling is being comes from the Middle East. So do you think that of late it has started, or in the coming future, very near coming future, it will make steep inroads into the it will rise up a little more than that?
Absolutely. The official growth of the industry in the region has been steady, but quite slow actually.
Yeah.
So keeping that 2-3% margin. However, one of the reasons is that the statistics that we're collecting may not be as clear or as transparent as the rest of the world. We have some countries in the region who we do not have access to their data, and they do have practitioners of direct selling. However, we cannot count on that data, and it is growing. We have unofficial information on that. Another thing is that just if you think about the Gulf region, GCC region, we estimate that around 1 million people are practicing direct selling one way or another. Probably 10 to 20% of them are doing a good business, and the rest of them are either semi-active or just consumers. This is a considerable percentage of the entire population of GCC alone. So yeah, the growth is there, and especially in the consumer market, we see a lot of motivation. From the business perspective, again, dynamics are different because the buying power is higher. So people are more motivated to become consumers than practitioner. And the ones who do, they're actually aiming very high. So just to come back to your main question, the growth is there. We're expecting even better growth because we're adopting e-commerce quite fast in the region. And we predict a really good next 5 to 10 years. Hopefully we can make that mark to 5% officially. Yes.
Perfect. So perfect. Thank you. And I'm sure that under able leadership of people like you, so that would surely happen. Mr. Adolfo, Dr. Franco, I would say. So.
Don't ask for knee surgery. Go ahead.
Okay. And your perspective on this is very, very important because you're sitting at a place, you're leading the direct selling efforts of a country which has actually started the entire revolution, I would say, and which has always been on the top. It has always been the top contributor. And now of late, China has started to come up and catch up with US, but US always has led the pack. So what is your perspective on the same? What is what are the trends that you see? Where do you see the industry headed?
Well, I share, of course, the observations of my colleague Ali, and there's no question he's right about the Middle East and certainly the potential there. And I think that is the new frontier for direct selling, actually. As is India, by the way. I think the potential in India is quite great. But I think globally, increasingly, particularly with younger people and new ways of thinking, that entrepreneurship and starting one's own business and being able to be the master of your destiny. For many years, we have talked about supplemental income, and certainly it's been traditionally an area for women. Often women have been the largest sector of both consumers and also direct sellers, although the share of men involved in direct selling in both categories has been growing. And And that is because I think younger people, particularly in a more modern society, want opportunities in non-traditional jobs, sometimes to supplement their income and sometimes to start their business. The greatest potential for direct selling lies in the fact that it is low risk, meaning that what's required to be invested is sometimes almost nothing, or certainly a small amount of money. So there's an ability to grow a business, have an opportunity without major disruptions in often in one's life routine, and certainly not with major investment of capital. I think that will continue to have appeal on two fronts globally. First of all, in emerging and markets and areas where there are necessities for jobs and opportunities, I think it is ideal to supplement income and to give an opportunity for people who want to work and are unable to find traditional jobs. In more developed societies, and this is why I think there's a beauty to direct selling that applies everywhere. Of course, that would include the Middle East, a number of countries in Asia, Europe, and North America. It also has an opportunity for individuals who have that entrepreneurial spirit and have the ability to make this a full-time endeavor. So very few businesses have that opportunity. The biggest problem we have is misconceptions about the industry, myths about the industry, things the industry is not. Unfortunately, people who are not direct sellers often abuse a model that looks like legitimate direct selling when it isn't. That has been and will continue to be our biggest obstacle. But overall, I think, and certainly Timuna and others will speak to this globally, when I began in this industry a long time ago now, almost 15 years ago, the number of people in direct selling was 50 or 60 million less than there are today, which is almost 200 million individuals. So it is at a phenomenal growth. That's not a large number in India, I know, but India and China and a number of Asian countries, I think, will be areas where there will be a major explosion because of these opportunities. And that is the biggest attraction traditionally and has been, I think, embraced globally.
Perfect, sir. Thanks for your views. And I certainly second you on whatever you said for the entire globe and for the Asian countries, for India, China, and other countries wherein huge potential is there. So moving on, Mr. Lawrence, I would like to understand your, because direct selling in Malaysia has done a real good job, if you talk about it. So it's not a very big country by the standards, but still it sits in the top 10 countries across the world. So I would like to understand from your, because you have been long associated with direct selling of Malaysia, and you've been basically the face of direct selling in Malaysia. So what is it that you see? And we would also like to have a perspective on what do you think differentiates Malaysia from other countries wherein direct selling has not been able to make that much of a mark?
Okay, thank you. Malaysia, I would compare it in terms of with other Asian countries. You will notice that Asian countries, we have a very young population here. I mean, in relatively compared to Europe and other areas, it's quite young. And with this young population, they are internet savvy, right? They want to be their own boss. They want immediate gratification. This is the mentality of the younger and middle age now. So this has potential growth for direct selling, especially in this region. We can see this, look at Cambodia. Cambodia has a very young population and the industry is exploding there. Laos is picking up, Myanmar is picking up, whereas the more traditional countries, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, is growing significantly well. We have recorded continuous growth for the last 21 years. There was never a year that the sales went down. And then this reflects the economic cycle also. This also proves that direct selling actually provides an alternative income for people. For example, the 7-year cycle, we call it a 7-year cycle in Malaysia. every 7 years, there is an economic cycle. Economy goes up for 7 years plus and then goes down. And when it goes down, you see the trend that direct selling sales immediately picks up continuously for the next 7 years. And then it dips a bit when the economy goes down and it goes up again. So this is reflective of the situation in Malaysia. And I'm sure most of the countries also experience this. And it basically just proves that it is a viable source of income for those that really need to supplement their income. Okay. Now, one question you asked about what are the current trends. One thing that I noticed over the last 1-2 years in Malaysia was in direct selling, we talk about MLM, multi-level marketing, right? The single level marketing, door-to-door business is very much on the back end now. But during the last 2 years in Malaysia, we noticed that there are lots of single level marketing companies that are doing exceptionally well. The top few companies in Malaysia, believe it or not, are from single level marketing companies. They actually go door to door, the traditional way of direct selling, and sell the products. Their products consist of like home improvement, water filtration systems. The quality of water is not that good in most of Asia countries. That's why they do very well. So it's a trend that has moved back to the roots and origins of direct selling, door to door, person to person selling. So that is something that I can see over here. And with other Asian countries too, like in Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, single level is doing quite well there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's something new for me actually. So because actually the roots of direct selling go, so that is what people actually conceptualize when we talk about direct selling. So they think that it might be direct selling is door-to-door selling. And if I talk about it, so if I'm not wrong, because I've been following the industry since quite a few, so it's like been 20 years since I'm following this industry. So the first Indian company to get into the top 100 direct selling companies actually was Eureka Forbes, and which is a direct selling company which started with like which actually revolutionized the entire direct selling or door-to-door selling concept, and wherein top-notch people, top-notch graduates from management schools would dress themselves well, they'll take some appointment, and then they'll go to the posh areas, and then they'll demonstrate the vacuum cleaners and water purifiers. And Eureka Forbes, like the rise was very steep because it actually gave a graceful flavor to the direct selling or door-to-door industry. So it might be cyclic, means I see a lot of sense in it, where that it might get back to door-to-door type of single level marketing as well. Jillian, your perspective on this, you represent an entirely different world, and wherein so direct selling has been in Australia since ages. So right from the conceptualization, and after the US, it was like the Australia which came into the direct selling forum. So your perspective on the current situation and the direct selling industry globally.
Well, I totally support many of what my colleagues have said. I would just jump in before I forget and say that unlike Malaysia, we have very little door-to-door. I'm not seeing a resurgence. In fact, we as an association do not represent one door-to-door selling company now where we used to traditionally. So that's an interesting and very interesting, Lawrence. I'm fascinated by that. So here in Australia, it's we're growing, as Ali said. This year has been phenomenal, really, for direct selling, which is bucking all the trends of what we really thought would happen. I'm very optimistic. I've been involved in the channel for 30 years nearly, and I did have some concerns in the last 5 years of how we would transition. And we talked a lot about disrupting ourselves before we become disruptive. And I'm not sure that we did. But now we have been disrupted since March, and our channel has responded exceptionally well. And I think when I joined the industry as a direct seller back in the 90s, I joined it because there was no other opportunities. There was no other way that I could work part-time. I was lecturing in a university, in a college at the time, and it was either full-time or no time. And so for me, there was no other opportunities. In the last years, we've seen the gig economy grow. And I think that's that's been a real enhancement to direct selling, because it's now made earning extra money, a part-time job outside of your main income, driving an Uber, running an Airbnb, has been made direct selling mainstream. It's made our reputation has risen. People see it as just another one. And not that we are gig economy, but I think it's helped our transition. I think COVID has helped our transition into, and for those that are developing, adapting, using technology, especially with the expanse of our country. We've seen in the last 4 months with technology, TikTok, which I'd never heard of until February, is growing some of our business phenomenally. And so it's great to see young people embracing our channel, coming in. It's the differentials of our business of direct selling, I think will hold us well into the future. The training that our magnificent companies give, the personal development, the recognition, that's not done in the traditional gig. And I think those will continue to differentiate our direct sellers and will continue to make our companies grow. We've broken down so many barriers in the last 6 months that I think it is now setting us up for a period of great growth and great transition.
So your belief in the industry actually is very, very, like it resonates because it's sky high, of course, because you've proven yourself as a direct seller first, and then you've come as an executive in the industry, and it's always like so much more fun to be a part of the industry wherein you can contribute and wherein you have been a part of, which has helped you in the past, right? And so you bring in a different perspective, and of course, I also think that as far as I know, and that door-to-door selling is still not a part of like IDSA even. So we do not represent many companies which are like into door-to-door, and perhaps Chetanji can comment on that. So it's a different trend. We are like Australia. Chetanji, your views?
Yes, actually what we, statutorily what we have done in India is that the door-to-door concept, we don't call it direct selling. It's more of a direct marketing now. Now, even as per the prevailing laws, the companies which are into direct marketing are not necessarily required to register themselves under the purview of the direct selling, right? So in India, there's a clear distinction. What is direct selling and what is direct marketing? So that's why probably, unlike Australia or unlike, Malaysia, wherein you still have a mix of both the companies working together, for the providing better goods to the consumer. In India, we have a clear line drawn. And regarding the global outlook of the industry, what I would like to comment here is there is absolutely no doubt the industry is going to grow. What matters is that torch bearers are going to change in the next decade or so. Many markets who are right now leading from the front, they might get saturated. And emerging market, for example, I mean, I might be promoting India here, but we have got a CAGR, compounded annual growth rate of almost 16% over a period of last 4 years. Which is way above the world CAGR, which is around 2% for the direct selling industry. So in the next decade, what I could clearly say is that new torch bearers are going to be there. Some markets are going to be saturated, but yes, definitely the industry is going to grow. So I would love to have a view of Tamuna, worldwide perspective of Tamuna on this.
Jillian and all of you said so well, because if you look at industry's growth, regardless of economic circumstances, it has grown consistently year after year. I remember since I joined many years ago. And when I present statistical data, and every year we do our statistics, which we issue in June of every year, I've seen growth. As Jillian said, what this pandemic has shown that our industry is flexible and it adapts very quickly. And as you know, our industry is, face-to-face people's industry. So what happened as a result of pandemic, not only our companies transitioned so well online, but some of the companies actually experienced tremendous growth they have seen in years. So the opportunities are there. Industry is fantastic. As I said, regardless of economic circumstances, people want to be independent, because we live in completely different world. I mean, look, from 9 to 5 jobs, right? And now offices will be pretty much going away. But what I've said always is, no matter how much before, and this pandemic shows us so well, that we were talking about everything going online and, you know, AI and robots will replace people. Well, this pandemic shows us it will never happen, because look what's going on. We always as humans need human touch, right? One-on-one, and it will be so much more amplified with when this pandemic is over. And our industry is exactly that. It's a combination of, you know, one person to person, and now everything online.
Perfect. Thank you. Adolfo, we talked about, you were talking about like the myths around the industry and illegitimate companies which like pose themselves as direct selling companies, and they're actually very, very difficult to differentiate. So in India, the government regulations are in the process of like implementation, right? So we've started with it, and the laws are very soon, the rules are going to be there, right? And direct selling has started to come up as a viable career option, right? And we would like to understand what is the state of government interventions in your country. So how stabilized and legalized is the regulatory framework over there? How much easy it is to differentiate between the illegitimate pyramid schemes and genuine direct selling companies? And does direct selling count as a respectable career option? Because as far as I know, it does in US at least, right? So I would like to understand the framework, the regulatory and the legal framework in your country, and how is that like helped the industry?
Well, it's an excellent question, and it's a curious answer to that. The regulations, the consumer regulations and so forth that exist, for example, and I'm familiar with the India situation for some time, and starting with the Chits and Price Act and so forth. I follow development in India very closely. And I know you're making a great deal of progress at the state level with new regulations and so forth, and a regulatory framework. Canada has something similar to that, to what you have. The United States, Canada, and Australia, but certainly in India, have a very similar federal system where the states are empowered, and there are a lot of, there's a state component that doesn't exist in some other countries. But curiously, in our country, which is probably where direct selling was born as we know it today in modern terms, it's curious that we do not have a legal framework. The way you have in India and the way that we have in Canada and so forth. Our system is an Anglo-Saxon system inherited from Great Britain, same traditions as India. So our basis of our law has largely been the common law and has been the decisions of stare decisis, so that is the decisions of the courts. So the evolution of the law in the United States is one of interpretation of cases as they're presented, and they become a model. There is an advantage to that in this regard and a disadvantage. The advantage is that it gives a great deal of flexibility in the marketplace to adapt and not need to change laws or have laws that were had unintended negative consequences. So we don't have the same, we don't have a direct selling law. What we do have in the United States to address the bad actors or people masquerading are legislation that prohibits at the state level, just similar to India. And we have them now in all 50 American states that prohibit pyramid schemes. And those are broadly defined as schemes in which, of course, there is no product and compensation, or there is not a very much of a product. Compensation is based on recruitment. It becomes a chain letter. And that's really what the Chits and Price Act was intended to do in India originally. And then it was sort of misapplied to legitimate direct sellers. So in the United States, our model is based at the state levels to define what pyramids are, and those are illegal under American law. Those are frauds and they're fraudulent scams. And there's a definition that we work with the Direct Selling Association in the U.S. works with legislatures to enact these laws that are fairly uniform throughout the country. But we don't have a definition of direct selling or direct selling regulations in our country, and it has worked fairly well. The negative of this, by the way, the advantage in India and the advantage in Canada and the consumer protection laws that exist in Australia, is that they have what we call safe harbors, and those are definitions that ensure that if you're doing these practices, and a company is complying, that it is legitimate business model. There's an advantage to that we do not have. We're subjected to constant regulatory interpretation, dealing with regulators, having regulators not understand the model, as has been the case in India and select states in the last few years. So this is a challenge. There is a flexibility that we think is positive, and there's a negative part of it. Where the solution comes in, and we promote globally, is that we advocate for definitions of what is illegitimate in the U.S. rather than what is legitimate. And that's the scheme or the way it's approached in the U.S.
Perfect, sir. Thank you. Lawrence, what about in Malaysia? So are there any rules or laws that govern the industry? And how easy or difficult it is to differentiate between the Ponzi schemes and the legitimate companies? So muted right now. Lawrence, you're muted.
Okay, forgot about that, sorry. Now, in Malaysia, we have the Direct Sales and Anti-Pyramid Schemes Act, which is the law which governs the direct selling industry. The act first started in 1978 with the enacting of the Direct Sales Act. This act requires that every direct selling company must be licensed. They need to obtain a license in order to operate. Okay. Then further on in 2012, we added in the Anti-Pyramid Schemes Act, which it's basically another act to combat the illegal schemes, and they combine both into one, and now it becomes Direct Sales and Anti-Pyramid Schemes Act. Now, how we differentiate it is basically quite simple. According to the act, there's a list of 10 points of pyramid schemes. Okay? For example, you cannot pay for recruitment, there's no front loading, and all those 10 points. And if any marketing plan in any direct selling company does not have any of these 10 points, they will be issued a license. Okay. So why they adopted this approach was because basically pyramid operators, they are very smart. They change their plans, they change their conditions almost daily, okay, to get in more you call it clients or whatever you want to call them. And with these 10 points, it is a very broad description of pyramid schemes, but it's clear that these 10 points must not be in any of the marketing plans. So how the law is enacted, enforced is, we have 13 states and 2 federal territories in Malaysia. We have this is a federal law, and every state must comply with this law. And it's the same ministry that governs over the 13 states and the federal territories. And as the association, we find that the act is actually beneficial for the industry. We find that for developing countries, I wouldn't say developing countries, for industries that are currently developing, it is important to have an act there because it is something for the industry to fall back on. There is clarity, there is black and white. It reduces the gray areas of interpretation. For advanced industry, I guess you have reached that stage where you're self-regulate, which is something we are trying to do now. In Malaysia, we are trying to self-regulate the industry with the ministry. That means the association, they will actually regulate the entire direct selling industry. Even with this on, we still recommend to the government, we maintain the law. We maintain the Direct Sales Act. Okay. And having said that, the act, they have pros and cons, of course. Sometimes some companies think it's too stifling. It stifles the growth of the industry. There are certain things that they can do, certain things they cannot do. But more importantly, that this act should be read in the spirit and goal of the entire industry. The danger comes when ministry officers, they get transferred. And when the new officer comes in, they do not understand the industry at all. And they tend to interpret the act according to what they feel it is like. So that is a very big challenge for us. So the role of the association, like especially for India, for example, is very important. You are there, you are the source of information because you know the industry best. Okay, you have to work closely with your government. That's what we do, and advise them on what the act is and explain to them the entire industry and how it actually works. Because when the act is on paper and the actual functioning of the industry, there can be confusion there.
Right. Thank you. And very rightly mentioned. So having a clear-cut law, so you're saying that it has definitely helped the Malaysian Direct Selling Association to be positioned where it is positioned right now. Gillian, moving on to Australia, we would also like you to throw some light on the academic perspective of the industry. So whether it is like being taught in the university, schools, and as also we would like to understand the framework of like the legal framework and regulatory framework of direct selling in Australia.
Absolutely. Well, very similar to Adolfo in the US is our sort of legislative system. We don't have any direct selling specific laws, except that we do pyramid selling is a legal activity and it's defined by law, which is useful for us, and it does give us a credibility and reputation, which is good. But the rest of direct selling is governed by federal laws. We have the Australian Consumer Law, which our members have, everybody has to abide by. We have our medicines, Complementary Medicines Act and things that our member companies, so there's many legislations that affect our members and govern our members, but there's not a specific direct selling legislation, which can be good and can be bad. It means our members are subjected to high regulations across the country, but it does also mean we have a high, we're guarded very highly by our legislators because our companies do adhere to it. We're very lucky. We're a small island and reputation is everything. So we find that because we are governed by multiple laws, our members are very good at sticking to within the law, and our direct sellers, more importantly, because I know that's our audience today, it's really important that our direct sellers abide by the company's policies and procedures. And our companies, and we are quite strict on that, so that our reputation is enhanced, because the last thing we want to do is to spoil the last 55 years that we've had working in this country. And I think, to your point, we get on very well with our regulators because they don't seem, too many problems with us. We're very fortunate to have had two very strong founding companies like Avon and Tupperware, who are world known, but when they started here in Australia, they set a really good foundation for growth and reputation is everything. So I think it's important that every single one of us works very hard to protect that reputation. To your second point, I'm really disappointed to say, coming from an academic background, we don't have direct selling in academia. I would love to see it. It's not for the want of trying. We've tried to do that, but we've not managed yet to find a university like yours where we can run a course. And occasionally I'm asked to go and lecture at a marketing course and talk about direct selling, but it's a drop in the ocean. And I think it's certainly somewhere that we want to take direct selling to raise its profile in the academic process, because young people are coming through marketing degrees and sales degrees and learning nothing about direct selling, and it's certainly something we need to do something about in Australia.
Oh, perfect. And
may I add something quickly?
Surely, please.
On 2 points that Gillian brought up, just so there's not a concept here that U.S. and Australia are wild places. We do have significant regulatory aspects about our business model, meaning business, what constitutes fraud, illegitimate practices, pyramids, and of course the supplements, industry, and so forth. But there's something else in addition to this, which is the code of ethics that our companies have to abide by, whether it's in India, whether it's in Dubai or Australia or Malaysia or anywhere, the world globally. There is a standard that can even be enhanced beyond what's set globally for the standards. That is self-regulation of the industry. That gives a lot of comfort, that it gives a lot of partnership with the regulators, and that's certainly not a voluntary aspect, since I know the audience here is direct sellers, that protects consumers and distributors. And it creates a standard that's beyond even what's required by law in all the countries that are represented here today. And the last point is we are involved in the academic world, just so you know, and so we're going to hook up Australia with the U.S. It's a major initiative of an education foundation we have to promote direct selling and higher learning in the U.S. But I wanted to add that ethics part, which I think is really important, and Muna will as well.
And if I may add about the academic community and the work that we are doing around the world, there are quite a few countries that are very involved with academic community and universities. For example, in France, for the past 6 years, French DSA, with the support of WFDSA, was able to, it is the first DSA in Europe, and it was able to introduce the courses and partner with top universities in France. We have amazing program in South Africa with University of Johannesburg, where basically direct selling, in order, for example, if you want to get marketing degree or there are certain types of degrees, you have to take part as direct selling. So you have to have a practical experience. There are many other countries actually where direct selling is either introduced already or is being introduced around the world. So I just wanted to add that.
Surely, I'll come back to you on this again, but let me ask Ali, so what's the state of regulatory affairs in the Middle East?
Well, in short, we do not have any regulations for or against direct selling as of yet. And as the other panelists mentioned, it's always good to have that regulation. Lawrence touched on it because right now, a lot of people think we're operating in the gray area. So our role is to educate the market in a way that we show the market that the focus right now, the emphasis, although there is no regulation about direct selling per se, but giving you UAE as an example, there is a massive focus on product. So the product related regulation is very strict. Even when some major companies bring their products, which are approved by a lot of international bodies, it still has to go through a very careful process of review and approval. In addition to that, the commercial license and the way a direct selling company can operate is defined usually as general trading. So the laws and the guidelines come from the Ministry of Economy. So those supporting regulations, if you will, allow us to let the direct selling companies work within the boundaries of law. And to Adolfo's point, we add the code of ethics and the code of practice on top of it, which the government is actually supporting us with that. And together, this becomes the framework. However, there are conversations that we really want to have regulations, clear regulations, special permits, adding an activity as direct selling into the activities a commercial license holder can have. So it gives more clarity and security to a company who wants to come and operate or start from scratch in the country, and also to direct sellers. Because UAE, again, as an example, majority of UAE residents are expatriates. We are not from the land, so we do not hold that citizenship. We usually come here as investors, students, and employees. We work as skilled, workers and entrepreneurs. So there is also the definition of the status of visa. How am I residing in this country? Who am I working for? Who am I working with? These create some confusion at times for the direct sellers. And we're trying to address this by supporting them, educating them, and also working with the government very closely to have these, gray areas defined and clarified as much as possible. Once we do that, actually, we expect another wave of direct sellers coming into the industry whose question is that, okay, is this legal? Is not legal? What can I do? What I cannot do? So far, with our relationship with Dubai Chamber of Commerce, we are abiding by all the rules and regulations that are required. And for the very first time, they officially invited us to start thinking about formulating some sort of a law. We are very fortunate for two reasons. First, the local government is very business oriented. They are very open to all kind of business and entrepreneurship conversations. Second, we have, today is an example, we have industry veterans, we have countries like United States, like Malaysia, like France, who went through this whole journey and graciously and with open hand, they're sharing their experience and the laws and regulations with us. So we're getting inspired by them, we're learning from them, and from our great neighbors, India. You know that we have a very respectable population of Indians in the UAE, and direct selling is actually is being transferred between two countries. You know, the entrepreneurs come and go, the culture, the education, we learn from each other a lot. So that's another good area we could definitely learn from the great experience and growth that India has been experiencing. Yeah.
Thank you. And things look promising. Means I can see it from.
They do.
I can feel it from your words. Tamanna, I would like to have your perspective, and because you actually have a bird's eye view of the entire industry across the globe, I would just like you to have a quick comment on, like, there are countries like US and Australia wherein there is no separate laws, and plus then there is like Malaysia and India wherein we're fighting for the laws, and Malaysia has an established different framework for regulatory framework for direct selling industry. So laws, separate direct selling laws, or you do not need a direct selling laws. So because you have an understanding of the entire ecosystem, so how have the countries which have depended on the federal laws performed in terms of like the fraudulent players and all the other stuff that is going around, and against vis-a-vis the companies which have a dedicated law? So what's your take on that?
You know, look, we all work together. So just to clarify, when we look around the world, we'll work together to define the best model that we can actually provide to the government when they work with direct selling association, you know, and want to, for example, introduce new regulations or, as a matter of fact, amend the law. So as we look at what my colleagues so well said, I don't have anything else to add, but I think that, you know, when you have more or less clear definition, it is good. You know, it is good, and it also depends, for example, where you are operating. Because, for example, if you look at the United States, you know, United States Direct Selling Association is over 100 years old, and direct selling has been in many countries for years. But there are new countries where there are a lot of opportunities, and sometimes, as we all know, people try to take advantage. So we are trying to work again with direct selling associations and with governments to introduce the definition or to work on regulations. So as Lawrence and Ali and Adolfo said, it's going to just be clear and better for the industry, for consumers, and for everyone involved in general.
Perfect. Thank you. Chetan, a quick word from you on the state of regulatory affairs in India.
Sure. I know we are already well past the original limit that we had, in mind for the webinar. And as much as I would love this webinar to go on, but we have good things come to an end. I'll just quickly add my 2 bits here. India, in my opinion, presents a test case here to the entire world. Why I'm saying this is because as of now, we don't have a dedicated law. But yes, the law-making process started in 2016 in the form of guidelines coming in. Now, these guidelines were a model set of rules that were, given by the government, and individual provinces or states were required to adopt them. So 13 states did that. And I have a little data here to share with all our panelists here. 3 years before the guidelines came in 2016, that is 2014, 15 and 16, the growth of the industry, the compounded annual growth rate was 5.5%. 3 years after 2016, that is 2017, 18, 19, the growth of the industry is 12.5%. So can we safely assume here that the moment you get a hint that certain legislation is coming to guide you, the confidence boosts up and it shows in the growth? Prior to 2016, a growth of 5.5%, and the moment a hint of a law came, the growth shoot up to 12.5%. Another thing that we are fighting here in India is, you see, if it's a dedicated law, it makes sense if that is the only law which becomes applicable on you, and the other 15, 20s law which were, people were enforcing upon you, you get out of that. However, if the new law doesn't have this kind of provision that, okay, this is the only law which is going to be there for you now, it doesn't make sense to have another law. It will be like just one more law in addition to the 15 earlier that were affecting you. So that's what we are fighting here. We are discussing with the government here, that whenever there is a new law for direct selling coming in, please make sure that that law becomes the only guiding force for the industry and keep us out of the ambit of 15, 20, 25, 30 other laws, which is as of now the situation. So back to you, Dr. Kamal, on that.
Perfect, great hints. And as you rightly mentioned, so we have such a rich panel, and we are already past the time that we had stipulated for this webinar, but we have a couple of questions and probably we'll try to wind it up in another 10-15 minutes with the permission of all of you eminent panelists. So we'll quickly move across the board and probably we'll combine, we'll have a last questions from you, and it's like there are some challenges which the industry faces, and apart from the illegitimate companies that pose themselves are their Ponzi schemes. So there's some challenges. Then if we talk about in India, so specifically the key challenges as per the annual report that IDSA published are the one of them is e-commerce websites which are selling Amazon, Flipkart. They are selling the direct selling products of the direct selling organizations. They're selling through the e-commerce websites, which of course is not legal, because I do not know whether we call it legal or not, because so there are some direct sellers who are selling it through the websites, which actually which goes against the very base or very fundamental of this business, which is equal opportunity. So what is the state of affairs in terms of e-commerce? There are another things like the people who are competing with each other, and the prospecting has been shifted not to the open population, but more prospecting has been shifted to the other direct sellers. So what we sort of call poaching, and people trying to catch hold of other organization and groups moving into. So these are some challenges which India is facing right now. So very quickly, I would like to go around the table to have your comments on that. And illegitimate companies, e-commerce websites, they are hindrances. So what are the hindrances? What are the state of these hindrances in your countries? And we would be very quick, as I would hate to say that, but still we have to be very, very precise in that. So probably we'll start with Lawrence on that.
Okay. Actually, in Malaysia, the Direct Sales Act forbids e-commerce platforms from selling direct selling products. But enforcement is not there, and we still find many direct selling products on the e-commerce markets. Now, having said that, we are trying to get the ministry to take action. But having said that, do we actually want to take action against them? Because we know that online sales is something that's growing very fast. Do we actually want to take action against them, or embrace and join and capitalize on their strengths to bring this industry further? That is a question that our members and our board has always been asking. Okay, that means join forces with them, work out a workable solution between the industry and e-commerce, and capitalize on each other's strengths. And they have a very wide audience, very big market there, who still do not know direct selling products. Why not capitalize on that? That's just our thoughts at the present moment.
Perfect. Gillian, what's your views on that?
Yeah, very interesting, Lawrence. I actually consulted with some members prior to this, and I've heard of several members coming out of the States that are actually embracing e-commerce and actually have agreements in place now and are trying, instead of fighting it, which I've been here 20 years, we've been fighting it for 20 years and we're not winning the battle. So in this new way and breaking down barriers, some of our member companies, both locally and in the States, are trying to reframe and look at it differently. We can't keep fighting it. We're losing that fight. So there must be a way of a partnership. And I know one member company has established a way and are trialing something in the States, and they're going to adopt that locally. The only other thing I would say on that is many of our members have a one strike rule at the moment. So if you're caught doing it, you know, it's one strike and after that you're out. So they take it quite seriously, but they're still, like Lawrence, it's going on, it's growing. And in some ways, I'm with you, Lawrence, there has to be a way that we can bring this together and grow both platforms and stop, you know, and help direct sellers grow in that respect. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. And I think through COVID, we're going to see some developments of this and some progression.
So Ali,
what was the second part of your question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Was there a second part of your question? Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I just thought there was a second part, Kamil. Sorry.
So you forgot it? So it was like the people who are like, so competing for, instead of like prospecting in the open world.
Really important. And I know Adolfo will talk to this one because we have similar legislation. It's very difficult in Australia. We have a code of ethics that we do say that our members work to this code of ethics, and we don't like to see unethical behaviour. But actually we have anti-competition laws which govern us here in Australia, and Adolfo will talk about it much more eloquently than I do. But we find it it's very difficult in this country. You know, we are a competitive market and people have to be able to move around companies. You just have to do it ethically. So it's a different one.
Right. So if you do ethically, then there's nothing like it. And I strongly believe that direct selling is one business which is more based upon ethics than any other industry probably. So I would say, Ali, your views on this. So as we can like understand from Lawrence and Gillian, it's like if you cannot compete, then collaborate. So what's your views on that? So most of the countries have their e-commerce web, like they have their digital platforms, but still people selling through the websites which are not authorized to sell the product. So what are your views on that?
Sure. I concur with my colleagues here. And ethics, again, is the key word. I'd like to just for the sake of the argument, differentiate clearly. When we say e-commerce is a very broad conversation. There is e-commerce where a company, a direct selling company, sells their own product through their e-commerce platform and also provide their members, their direct sellers, with microsites and apps and features where they can do e-commerce. This is the new wave of direct selling. This is how people connect. This is how people sell. Door-to-door was 100 years ago. This is the new door-to-door. It's absolutely legitimate. Then we see while some companies do this, and they provide you with all the features, still there are some direct sellers who take their products and sell it on eBay or Amazon, public e-commerce platforms. In most of the cases, this is unethical simply because they want to downsell it. They are buying a lot of products, or they are forced to buy a lot of products. So I'm talking about the root cause of this problem. What motivates a direct seller to go out of their way, open an account on eBay and sell products for 50% of the price that they are allowed, and actually compete unethically with fellow direct sellers. So if we find the root cause and see that there are certain plans sometimes in some direct selling companies who motivate people to buy more than they need, to collect points, brownie points in different ways, then you're going to end up selling them online and on third-party platforms. Collaboration instead of fighting is the way to go. I would take it one step further and say embracing it. But the likes of Amazon and Etsy and these platforms, we cannot fight with them. Amazon itself doing some questionable, ethically questionable activities. They're recently caught red-handed competing with their own merchants they look at what sells best. They come up with the Amazon brand of the similar product. They have access to all the data and they do the same. So we cannot compete with a behemoth like Amazon, but we can, first of all, educate our direct sellers, make sure our companies are abiding by the ethics, and also they have technologies that the direct sellers can work with. Some companies are still kind of pen and paper kind of system. So we cannot blame those direct sellers for jumping on the bandwagon of e-commerce and not being there. So again, education, ethics, and regulation quickly. Yeah.
Great words, sir. And Adolfo, so very quickly, your views on e-commerce, poaching, and very quickly.
Well, I can be very quick because my colleagues have covered just about all the territory, and I completely concur with everything that has been said. In the U.S., this is just not manageable any longer. There's just no way everything that's going on Amazon, and it's just impossible, despite best efforts. We are working with Amazon and with eBay, and Jillian alluded to some of what we're doing here in the United States with some on a company by company basis, and we might even become involved as an association on things like expired products, products that are counterfeit products, things that are clearly legal. But Ali covered the distinction between what is legitimate, which we embrace, and I think every company is embracing the legitimate e-commerce setting on these platforms, than this underselling or products that are sometimes even counterfeit products. Those are the biggest problems, and sometimes distributors that are manipulating a compensation plan and so forth. So this is a huge problem. There's not a solution to it immediately, and it's going to take a period of time. The sales force rating or proselytizing issue is a more complicated issue on a global basis because it does vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And Australia, the United States, and frankly, most of the Anglo-Saxon countries that are Anglo-Saxon traditions have favored competition. And by doing so, this isn't in every market in the world, non-compete and other restrictions on people's ability to sometimes sell for more than one company, or certainly bring in people from another company, entice them to come in. The law generally in the United States favors that, favors competition, favors freedom, favors mobility of the individual to do these things. There are some limits to this though, and they involve often the company systematically interfering with contracts. It's called tortious interference, tort, in English law. And when you do this, which is a high legal standard, there is a liability. You can't go out to try to destroy a sales force for the purpose of doing it if you're interfering with contractual obligations. It gets into more complicated legal area. But as a general proposition, individuals who want to bring people on or it's a very sore subject for our member companies. It's a very sore subject for all our companies to be told that you can do this because they view it as unethical. And it might be on a personal level, but it is not any legal practice to do this practice.
Perfect, sir. So Tamuna, finally your words on this. And so probably so what I understand from all the panelists is like, as far as it remains in the purview of a healthy competition, it is all right. So as long as downselling is not there, as long as some like horse trading that we say is not there. So your final views on this?
No, my colleagues expressed it so well. Frankly, I don't have anything else to add to what they have already said. But I totally agree what they said, and you have to embrace it rather than fight it, and Alice differentiated so well, and Adolfo explained. So I want to finish with that. You have to look at it, and instead of fighting, you have to embrace what's good. So I would like to finish with that.
So perfect. Yep. And Chetanji, if you would like to add something.
Sure. Most of the good things have already been said, already been discussed. But I would like to say here is, in India, I mean, to our international guests here, in India we had a sage called Chanakya. So in 3rd century BCE, in the ancient language of Sanskrit, he wrote one shloka, Kaschit kaschiti mitra na kaschit kaschiti ripu. Arthatastu nibrante mitrani ripavastha. People don't become your enemy or your friend just like that. They become your enemy and your friend because there is a purpose behind it. This was written in 3rd century BCE. So same is the case with e-commerce. They are not our friend or our enemy because they would like it to be that way. See, there is an economic purpose behind it. They want business, we want business. So I absolutely second the opinion of every panelist here. There has to be a common ground where both these industries need to come, need to sit together, need to discuss. There is a lot of business out there. There is plenty of business for e-commerce. There is plenty of business for direct selling. We don't have to fight each other. There could be common grounds. We just need to sit together and explore them. That's it. Back to you, Dr. Khan.
Perfect. And actually, I also second all views because direct selling, e-commerce in any case. So we've all read it across the world, like direct selling, e-commerce, franchising, they all represent disintermediation. So getting rid of or like reducing the number of intermediaries in the chain. So we can be allies, and I have very strong belief in that. And it's so wonderful to hear from you all. And I do not know how this time has passed, and it's like 1.5 hours we've been talking to each other, and it seems like we've just started, right? So I would have loved this conversation to go on and on, but as Chetan also rightly mentioned that we have to end it on a good note, rather. So just final comments, just one single sentence on your single line message to the direct selling fraternity across the world, across India specifically. So probably we can start with Ali.
Sure. For all of us to keep up the great work and work even closer together and collaborate better. Now, with technology, we're just one click away from each other. So there is no excuse. We just have to work better together and make sure that the industry is flourishing more and more. Thank you.
Adolfo, your concluding words.
Well, I'll be very, very brief, but I have to tell you from my sincere belief is that, not because we're here talking to an Indian audience, but I think India is the new frontier in Asia for direct selling. I think it's an enormous potential for a number of reasons. It's an entrepreneurial society, it's a democracy, there's a lot of demand for supplemental income. It just works. It's a family oriented. I just really believe that it will rival China in short order. That is my belief. And I have to say this sincerely, and I think Tamuna shares that, the leadership of the Indian DSA, in my experience of 15 years, is today unparalleled. And it's not a reflection on anyone in the past. It's just par excellence.
Perfect. Lawrence, your concluding words, please.
Very short. For distributors and companies in India, believe in what you do. Okay. This industry has survived many years and has provided supplementary income for many people. Believe in what you do. That's it.
Thank you. And what we hear from everywhere across the globe, and today also we did that, not only does this industry survive in adversities, it actually grows in adversities. So this has been like the previous trends. Gillian, your final words?
I would say off the back of what Adolfo was saying that India is going to be an amazing market, but it'll be an amazing market because of every single direct seller taking pride in their own reputation. If each and every one of us protects our own ethics and our own reputation, together we'll all rise.
Wow. And finally, Tamuna?
I want to echo what Adolfo said. First of all, I mean, it has been exemplary leadership of IDSA. And when we look at India, we just had our event not so long ago when the world was normal, when we could come together, and interact with each other. It was back in September. It was absolutely fantastic event. And actually, we were all amazed about this tremendous untapped potential that Indian market has. And since we are here talking about India, our belief, as Adolfo said, that India will be next to China, and it has among our top billion-dollar markets. And we have currently about $23 billion markets, and India will be on the very top. We hope very soon.
As we say in India, it says, "Aapke muh mein ghee shakkar," which means that whatever you say, might prove true, right? So we are also very, very optimistic, and at least I and Chetan and Abhishek ji, who's always there to support at the back end, and so we are always very, very excited. We are always very optimistic about India being in the top 3 markets at least, right, in the coming decade. Chetan ji, your final comments and vote of thanks.
To all of you, and without your support, IDSA would not have been what IDSA, the reputation is in India. It's all because of international collaboration. It's all because of the bonding that IDSA has with all of you. And one thing that I would like to, I like to add this in every webinar, wherever I go. To all the direct sellers, watching this webinar, please understand there is no substitute for hard work. If you are willing to do hard work, this industry has the potential, it can generate benefits for you. But if you think it's some quick money-making business wherein you can become millionaires or billionaires in a short span of time, it's not going to happen. Nothing can replace hard work. So if you are willing to commit yourself, if you are willing to invest your 5-10 years of your life committed to the industry, please join the business and you will see that the industry is going to give you high returns. Thank you.
So most of the time we hear about a confrontation between whether it's hard work versus smart work. So it's not hard work versus smart work. It's doing hard work in a smarter way. So that's all that makes a difference. Right.
Yes.
And it's been such an immense pleasure to be in the esteemed company of all of you. It's been one of the best days of my life, I can surely tell you. And I would surely love to keep in touch with you all, and we'll surely make direct selling a great industry. And we know that we are living with the cause, and that cause is very, very dear to our heart. So thanks from the bottom of my heart and from all the direct selling fraternity of India to be on board and give us some guidance on where we are headed, where the industry is headed, and giving us so much of belief in the industry as well as in ourselves, right? So thank you all, and thank you to all the viewers as well. So who have been there, thank you to Abhishek ji and Tarun ji, and so who have been working behind the scenes and who are the ones who are like behind all this massive efforts. So what we see in the faces, but there are so many faces which are working behind the scenes. And thanks to all those as well, to my management of the industry, of the university. And next Saturday, we would be coming up with the academic perspective. And so Gillian, we would love to have you all. So we will be coming with an academic perspective, because one of the core objectives is also to have this imbibed in our education system. And that's something which I've been fighting for since quite some time. And so we'll have academicians, and we'll have a perspective of what they think, what the research is going, where is the research in direct selling headed, what has been the outcome of the research on direct selling that has been conducted in the past. So we'll be there at 11:30, and today we have spent 1.5 hours, and it was very less time from the standards of what you have delivered to us. And so thank you once again, and see you all, keep in touch. And the certificates for direct selling 4 would be released today, right? And
and I would like to request all the direct sellers watching us, the moment you get your certificates, we request you to take a printout and send us your selfies with that, with the hashtag direct. Thank you so much.
We have to promote this social media. Thank you so much. And we should only keep it.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure.